I go on the clothing line, supposed to bend and do this.
Yep.
Oh shit, around. Actually, just I'm forgetting to do it. Like I said, I really would ask. I mean, you know, if
Yeah, please, if I go over something,
Yeah.
You do have a great ability to jump in with a great question. So yeah, because I wouldn't say it's like a lot to cover, but I just want to be thorough with a little timeline.
Yeah.
And just thorough with what I have. Yeah.
Reference points, the
Yeah,
books,
gotcha.
all that stuff.
Gotcha.
Brief summary on your background, yeah, history and all that good stuff like that.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. I'm trying to think. So, Black Indians, Aboriginal people,
and the connection to American descendants of
slavery. Yes. If I leave anything out of that,
All right.
realize that.
I got you.
When you start speaking.
I got you.
You can try to get that frog on my throat. You know, I got my hands on some ginger cough drops.
Oh yeah.
I got from Amazon.
Okay.
That should work good.
I got some from
I should have bought my little.
Earth Fair a while back.
All right, going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Point of Perspective podcast back once again. We're doing something a little different this time. We want to do like a symposium of a very, it's a good topic, but probably not talked about enough from a detailed point of view, detailed reference point, detailed perspective. I got Jabal Perry speaking on this in depth. And at the point of perspective, what we want to do is give a perspective on stuff that people may be talking about amongst family, older ones in the family, and different subjects like that. We really want to go into detail on certain things. So some things are light, and some things are really serious. And I think this is one of the more serious things that people don't know enough about, but maybe they've questioned. Talking to a older one in the family, or maybe you know someone, a friend, or something of that nature. So we want to get right into it, and we're going to go into the Black Indians, Aboriginal people, and the connection to slavery. And going in detail with this, it's going to be Jabal Perry. I'm going to turn this over to him and let him expound on this very, very important topic.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, this topic is very, near and dear to myself and many of us. And we do need to have more transparency, more in-depth research, more understanding. And the title of this is Black Indians, Aboriginal peoples, and the connection to A.D.O.S, or American Descendants of Slavery. And for us to come to this understanding going forward is very important for us as a group of people. No matter how you classify yourself, it really don't matter. If you classify yourself as Black, African American, Aboriginal, is what we have to deal with the way the political aspect of what we have been termed to be. But yet we can control and define our own status, but understand we can come together under understanding of unity and a good sense of history. And since I guess you might call me autodidact as far as being self-taught historian. And in this particular episode, I'm going to give a shout out again to my late cousin, Mr. Wayne Eubanks. He and I are going to collaborate on this. A little background on our family history. Wayne had done a lot of research on our Aboriginal Indian roots for our family, and very knowledgeable on. I'm gonna do this episode in his honor, of course, in his legacy, his memory. He's a great man, great cousin, great everything to everybody, you know. And to that, his great-grandmother, our great-great-grandmother, the woman that raised our father, literally raised our father, was Indian. And, you know, this was, you know, known throughout our family. All the features that would describe her to be this, and her history, which my cousin has had all of the research on, which I'm going to have to get that part of it, because that was going to be a great part of this discussion. And in it as much, you know, what do we do with that? You know, what do we do with the fact that all of us as people of color in this country have some tie to Aboriginal people of this land, and we also have tie, of course, to the African diaspora. So with that, I'd like to go into some of the history and what makes us up, and into the first peoples over here into this continent, the Folsom people. That there dates back around 16,000 years ago, and the Folsom people's artifacts and some of the remnants of the skeletal remains was found near Folsom, New Mexico in 1926, and is actually found by a former slave who was a self-taught naturalist. And these artifacts remain at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. And this discovery had marked a major change in the understanding of the ancestors of Native American peoples. And of course, they discovered these people were what you would describe as black people. Okay? And so into this description of black people, let's also understand, this is a description given to us and given to the world by the dominant European white society, as to describe and distinguish races of people. And the concept of races came about, I think, the late 1700s. But to understand, what clearly this points to black people being here thousands and thousands of years ago, and the ancestors of some of the native Aboriginal people of this land. Now with that, we also have one of my favorite authors and historians, Ivan Van Sertima, and his book, We Came Before Columbus, which is a great read, by the way. And a part of this right here is to get us not just talking about it, not just, which I do also, I watch a lot of the YouTube videos, but let's get the actual research that can prove these points on your native and Aboriginal ancestry. And so this book is a great starting point. They Came Before Columbus, the African presence in ancient America, and it points to the Olmec heads found in Central America, Mexico, throughout that area, and a direct link between the Americas and ancient America and Africa. And I encourage everybody, you know, to get this book. And it's, once again, by Ivan Van Sertima, They Came Before Columbus. And also, when we're going down this timeline, you know, I'd like to share one of my experiences. As I went to the Yucatan about 4 years ago and went to Chichen Itza and saw the pyramids down there and had a great tour guide. And I was pleasantly surprised to find there was a very, very distinct, unique connection between the glyphs down there and the pyramid building, and most importantly, the way of life and their spiritual system that was connection to Africa. Really, it was a straight connection. So this spiritual tie, I think, plays a large part in the connection between the continents in a certain way of life. And around the time, we can go from there and fast forward up into the so-called discovery of the New World. I want the people to understand that before Columbus, there were documented African travels to the New World. You know, there was definitely, that's where Columbus got the understanding to come to the so-called New World. it was from African sailors. Okay, and in this case here, one that is well documented is Abu Bakari Keita II, king of Mali. And he chartered and sent thousands of sailors over here to this part of the world. Some of them got shipwrecked. Some of them, definitely traded and shared culture and idea and experiences. And the one thing that they have on record, there was no domination or wiping out of settlements or wiping out of indigenous people. There was actually a connection, a camaraderie of trading. And there was no, just like with the Olmec heads and the ancient civilizations, there's no mention there of destroying peoples for land conquering and discovery. This wasn't what, Aboriginal peoples did from different parts of the world. And also I'd like people to understand that we're so caught up in what we believe is technology. We have a hard time grasping the fact that our ancient ancestors had already traversed the globe. Okay? That's why there's a connection. That's why black people are indigenous, to America, and also, of course, coming out of the African diaspora. But even after that, when the conquistadors came, in the 1500s, there's this one particular Moor, black Moor from Spain. I'd like for us to do research on as well. His name is Abanico, and he was a black Moor that came along with the conquistadors in the early 1500s to this land in about, I believe, the Central South American area. And, he was part of the remnants of the Moors that ruled Spain for 700 years, or ruled the, as they call it, the Iberian Peninsula, which would make Spain, Portugal, into Gaul or France when the Moors actually ruled. So, the Spanish definitely know who black people were, as they were part of the people who came up with the term to identify black people as Negro and what have you. So Abanico came along with the conquistadors, very integral in the fact that he was able to communicate properly with the indigenous people of this land. Okay, now once again, he's from Spain. A black Moor from Spain coming over with the conquistadors and being able to communicate properly through sign language, and what many of the conquistadors say, able to speak their language. So that's definitely a connection here from across the large body of water, continent to continent. And in so many of the records of Christopher Columbus, who did not discover anything, Christopher Columbus, describing the native peoples from their description as blacks or Negroes. Okay, so this says something definitely that I want everybody to look at, from the eyes of the European and how they see us, to understand that there is a connection, but it don't always make a distinction. But this comes later on. In the etymology, even the name California, tying with the conquistadors, as a lot of the names of the states and places in this country is Spanish names because of the Portuguese down South America, the Spanish in this Central America and what have you. And the name California is derived from an old Spanish tale from an island close to the Garden of Eden that was ruled by beautiful black women. And so when the Spanish came and saw the people in what is now California, which was the California territory, they saw what, once again, you describe as black Indians. Okay, that's what their appearance was. And so this is where the name comes from, the queen of this mysterious island, Queen Califia, or as you may say in Spanish, La Reina, or La Reina Califia. I'm trying, my Spanish is very rusty. But in that respect, this is another tie to what they saw over here in this part of the world. And so these are some of the things that, kind of directly point to black people being here way before Christopher Columbus discovered it, or brought slaves over, as he did on his second voyage, I believe, and what have you. And, any other parts of the diaspora, there are already black people here. So here are some of our history here from Charleston, Savannah, New Orleans, etc. There were, at one point, as Charleston was founded in 1670, and this part of the world wasn't given to those that quote-unquote discovered or settled Charleston. There was a fight because the indigenous peoples of this area were already in heavy commerce with other Europeans and with one another for these three riverways we have. Okay, when this city was conquered, more or less, and from a great time period on, there were more of the indigenous Aboriginal people shipped out of Charleston, before as many slaves were shipped in Charleston. And I also want our people to understand that the boats didn't come, for the most part, directly from Africa to Charleston. There was a washing out station of sorts after leaving the coast of Ghana into the Caribbean first, up from the Caribbean into Charleston. And there's a connection. I had a great conversation with a brother from Nassau, Bahamas about 5 years ago about this very topic and the close connection between the Bahamas and Charleston, South Carolina. Very close connection. A lot of people who have the true history on it really know that that's really one of the starting points for the diaspora, for a lot of us coming up from the Caribbean, the Bahamas, into Charleston. Okay, there's a connection there. And also, once again, the connection with the indigenous or Aboriginal people, how it all ties together. And so these conflicts with these indigenous tribes, which will start to form what we now know as the Gullah Geechee Indian tribes or communities, and this is like the Seminoles, this is a lot of tribes coming together. And so with that, you're going to have like a melting pot of sorts with Aboriginal people, with people from other lands from across the sea to adapt to this culture, and of course those who are going to be put into servitude, who were in servitude, escaped servitude. They would form these communities and the Indian tribes and whatnot, and so it goes on into the Seminole Wars, the Gullah Geechee Wars. In the early 1800s, like 3 on record. The one most significant for our people, the Second Seminole War, which the historians who really know that to be the Negro War. Okay, a lot of that which we learned in school, which didn't teach us a whole lot, didn't teach us that the whole reason behind the Trail of Tears had a lot more to do with people not wanting to be enslaved. But the black Indians, in alliance with Indians or Seminoles, we had the black Seminoles, the Seminole Nation, we had definitely the intermingling of the two coming together. We have the Aboriginal Indian tribes that were fighting to stay out of slavery. And this, before I go straight to the Seminole Wars, was really right close to our home as well, the Yamasee Wars. Okay, and the Yamasee Wars was really about stamping out the black Indians, the black Aboriginal people, to bring in Africans, okay, to get rid of the Aboriginals, bring in Africans, but I guess they didn't count on the two factions of people truly coming together and forming an even stronger alliance. So you have slaves from the diaspora who are prisoners of war. If you know anything about the Stonewall Rebellion, it's a great book on the Stonewall Rebellion. I think I don't have it here. I got a great book on the Stonewall Rebellion. I'll get back with the people on that. And it, blow by blow, as much as the historical records can account what went on with the Stonewall Rebellion, the African slave from Angola, Jimmy, who was the leader of that rebellion, right here from where we know Johns Island area is, off the Stonewall River. And during this revolt, guess what? The idea was, because the black Indians knew and the black slaves of the diaspora knew, if you get to the Florida or Spanish-controlled territory, you are free, because the edict by His Majesty, His Catholic Majesty, the King of Spain at the time, he allowed any runaway slaves, black Indians, or any Indians living in a Spanish-controlled territory to be free and free of domain and not a slave ever again in servitude. So this was a lot of the catalyst for those wanting to gain their freedom and already knowing that their brethren, their kinfolk, would be waiting on them and form stronger alliances. Now with that, going into the Seminole Wars, because this is so significant with a lot of what this topic should mean to all of us. In the Seminole Wars, I'll get to the second Seminole War from 1835 to 1842. There's a great book on that. And it's called Florida's Negro Wars, Black Seminoles, and the Seminole War from 1835 to 1842 by Dr. Anthony Dixon. Okay, and this is a great, great book. He's a doctor. He's actually on the board of the Indigenous Peoples Research for the state of Florida, and has done very good research on the black Indian ties to a lot of what our people should be getting in benefits, because what our people went through, you know, by way of various treaties, by way of gaining their own freedom, by way